Hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Sharmeen Ali. We have seen over the weekend and today as well violence erupt all over India due to the Citizenship Amendment Act. Now it has been passed into legislation by the Indian Upper House, the Rajya Sabha, and it was not very surprising to see first in the northeast protests broke out in Assam, and over there 6 people have been killed due to the brutality of the Indian police force. And also we're seeing student protests all over the country. There are protests in universities in Delhi, Lucknow, Aligarh, Chennai, Chandigarh, Hyderabad, West Bengal and Mumbai, and 200 students have been injured in Jamia University in New Delhi. So this has been a very scary and terrifying sort of a development in India, but not surprising at all, because people are not just Muslims, people are speaking up against the injustices related to the Citizenship Amendment Bill, which is now an act. And it's Muslims, Hindus, everybody alike who say that this is not constitutional and it goes against their secularist and pluralistic values. Also, we'll be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan's recent visit to Saudi Arabia, where he allayed the fears of the Saudi leadership that Pakistan is not going to join any sort of bloc that goes against Saudi Arabia's interests. Naturally, Saudi Arabia was one of the first countries that came to Pakistan's aid when it was facing a current account balance deficit crisis earlier in Prime Minister Imran Khan's tenure. So Pakistan has not forgotten all of the help that we have gotten from Saudi Arabia. So to keep them on board with any such developments is a priority for Pakistan. Also today, the 16th of December, is the day that we remember. It is a very, very sad day in the history of Pakistan. 5 years ago today, in 2014, 150 people, including 134 children, were killed in the Army Public School massacre in Peshawar. And these were children who were in school. It was absolutely a criminal and heinous act caused by terrorists, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And after this happened, the children who were massacred along with their teachers and principals, it caused a reaction in Pakistan where nobody was going to stand up for anything like this ever again, and the National Action Plan was promulgated. And after that, the army launched Operation Zarb-e-Azb, Operation Radul Fasad, and to fight terrorism, and has brought down and controlled this problem to a great deal, but still work is still to be done. There are still sleeper cells in Pakistan that the army is trying to eliminate. The army has given a lot of sacrifices for bringing an end to terrorism in Pakistan. We're grateful for that. So let's begin with our first story, that India is facing protests all over the country and a brutal crackdown by the Indian police forces, security forces, against its citizens. Let's have a look.
There is absolutely no need to go back to history to find the reasons for division of the subcontinent. The disgraceful acts of leader of so-called democratic India, Narendra Modi, has provided all the reasons to vindicate Muhammad Ali Jinnah's consistent demand for a separate homeland for the Muslims. Approval of anti-Muslim bill by the upper house of Indian Parliament is testimony of the evil designs of Narendra Modi and his cabinet. In a pursuit to his purposeless dream to demonize Muslims, Modi has forgotten the basic fact that the world is very much aware of reality. The discriminatory bill is being condemned by the same voices prevailing in India. Muslims have taken to streets to register their protest. Indian forces are exercising every means to torture students protesting for their rights. State of denial has engulfed Muslims of entire India, from Aligarh, Lucknow to Jamia Millia in Delhi. Students are demonstrating in anger, demanding the government to withdraw the unethical and unjustified bill. With Modi in power, hope is fast fading that sanity will prevail. However, he has successfully reminded the entire world why Muslims opted for a separate homeland after British exit in 1947. There is absolutely no need to go back to history.
So we were watching the protest situation developing in India. We have online with us Lieutenant General Amjad Shoaib, who is a senior analyst. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on PTV World. Sir, your
Thank
comments on what we are seeing happening in India right now, is this any surprise to see these protests flaring up all over the country after the Citizenship Amendment Act?
you. See, ever since Modi took over the reins of the government, these things were visible. We could see that he is moving in a direction where Indian Muslims are going to be marginalized, and ultimately the country will belong to Hindu, and Hindutva ultimately will prevail. And these people, these Muslim communities, and many other minorities like Sikhs, etc., they may not be able to enjoy the status of a first-rate citizen. So the situation is there now with this new law that they have passed. It is quite visible. It is quite obvious that Muslims are no longer considered to be the real citizens of India. And with the passage of time, I think ultimately they will have a lot of suffocation. Muslims are going to face lot many problems. See, this was an issue of human rights. This was an issue of constitutional guarantee which a country gives to all the citizens of treating them with equality. Unfortunately, Modi, right from the beginning, he's a terrorist and he had that mindset of RSS where he had been groomed. And that superiority of Hinduism is just, I think that has captured his mind, and he's not going to budge from that because that perhaps is the sole purpose of his ruling India. He, at the same time, see their economy. It is in doldrums, and they are having a lot of economic problems, and Modi would like to divert the attention also at the same time. So
Right.
for Indian Muslims, I think these are the trying times which have come, and I personally have a feeling that they should stand up. There is bit of turmoil in all the cities, but then they should join hands with the Sikhs. Now Sikhs are going to they are going to hold referendum in the next year, during the next year, 2020, and that is the time that Muslims should also cooperate with them, and they should all demand separate homeland for them. I have no doubt that ultimately India will go through another partition because the kind of hatred which Modi has created uh, for other communities, the nation can't live like this.
Right, sir. What I'd like to also ask you now is that we're seeing protests all over India. However, all these actions that have been taken by Prime Minister Modi's BJP government were in their election manifesto. The revocation of Article 370 and 35A were all there. The Citizenship Amendment Act, the National Register of Citizens, and now the protests are going on. However, the same population voted Mr. Modi into power. And the Hindutva philosophy, the people who hold this philosophy are not in a majority. They're just very powerful. So how is it that they were voted in with this manifesto and now we're seeing protests?
No, I don't think it was the manifesto alone which brought Modi into power. It was Pakistan passion. The one thing is quite obvious that the entire Hindu community there, with I mean, there are uh, more than 1 crore people are living there, Hindu people. They have an absolute majority, and they are anti-Pakistan. Their mindset has been made in a way that Pakistan bashing is welcomed, and people think that Modi perhaps is a person who can teach lesson to Pakistan. So, if you recall, before the last election, Modi was losing in various states. He lost election in 5 states, but suddenly after Pulwama, when he created a lot of hatred against Pakistan and then tried to tell the people that we have gone into Balakot and killed 300 people, such like lies, they provided him a lot of strength, and ultimately he was able to get a historic victory. This wouldn't have happened if there was no Pakistan passion. It was all because of Pakistan passion that he was able to get this majority. But these are the things which people perhaps never expected. See, in our country also, the political parties, they have a manifesto, they make lot many promises, but ultimately, when they get into the power, then there are realities which they have to face, and they usually avoid such things which can create difficulties for them or for the country. So I always used to think that Modi perhaps has promised certain things in his manifesto, but he will not be able to implement because ultimately, in the larger interest of the country, he would perhaps like to have unity within the communities than to have this kind of animosity against each other. Now the things
Right.
are taking a different turn, and Modi, I think he was misled because of his steps that he took in Kashmir. The Muslim community didn't react. In India, the Muslim community didn't react against Modi's steps which he had initiated in Kashmir. Perhaps he
Right.
thought that the Muslim community within India is also docile and they'll be swearing whatever will be done to them, and there'll be no reaction.
Right.
So I think a bit unfortunate for Modi, but this had to happen. And I personally, I feel that this thing ultimately will not be controlled, and they will not be able to control. And step by step, these things will definitely start forcing the Indian government to look for certain measures.
Right. Thank you so much, General Amjad, for joining us online today. And we have now with us in our studios Dr. Amna Mahmood, who's an international relations expert. Let's get her feedback and opinion about this issue that's going on. Ma'am, you've seen the protests that are going on around India today and yesterday with all the university students coming out and protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act. So let me ask you this. We were having a discussion with General Saab online. We saw what happened in Kashmir. Article 370 and 35A were revoked, and India was silent about that. The journalists and all did not speak about the human rights violations there much. Very few protests, etc. Now we're seeing, after the Citizenship Amendment Act, everybody is out on the streets. The whole country is kind of up in flames. So why is it that there was no reaction then, and now you're seeing it all over the country, in your opinion?
Well, apparently, it looks that Kashmir was actually not of direct relevance to the citizen at the grassroots level. Most of them were thinking in terms of that Kashmir was a disputed area, and India has resolved this issue now, and there would be that would be helpful for Indian state. But this citizenship is seen as a matter of direct influence on the people. You see that it is against the Article 13, 14 and 15 of Indian Constitution that speaks of human rights, and that speaks of equality of the citizen regardless of the caste, creed and religion. And if they are going to introduce this very law, that is going to be law, it would be very detrimental for the basic status of India as a secular state. And you know, for the survival of India, there should be, for every state, there should be some ideology. And that ideology may be a religion or maybe a political ideology. And India has created this ideology as the Mother India, that India is the land of all people living here for centuries. And that is Mother India, Indian land is the mother of
That's
all,
the beauty
all
of the
human.
idea of India.
That is the beauty of
Exactly.
idea, that is actually the idea of humanity, the
Yes.
respect for humanity. And if it is going to compromise the very basis and very existence of Indian polity and Indian constitution is threatened, that's why these people are reacting.
Yeah.
Because you know, if you see apart from the political level, you see that Indian people are living with each other like good neighbors. They are having relationship with each other. And if you closely study Indian society, you will see there are a lot of intermarriages regardless of religion. Because people are living with each other,
And
and
ma'am,
certainly
these Hindutva fascists that you have in India, they're not a majority, they are a minority, yet at the moment they're very powerful in
even
the
within
BJP
Hinduism,
government.
even within Hinduism,
Even within Hinduism.
Yeah.
So, but they're very powerful right now, even though they're a small number. And they're able to get away with all of this that we're seeing over there, the
Yeah, you're very
extremist
right.
state
Right
actions.
now, India is the hostage in the hands of RSS and Hindutva, and Hindutva itself is an ideology that is emerging and that is taking place of Indian secularism. And India was having a good face around the world, the largest democracy, just because of this secularism. Because you know that the whole world respect India, that they are a democracy and they are having respect for every person regardless of caste, creed and religion.
Right.
But if religion would be the identity and minorities would be targeted like this, that would be the matter of concern not only for Muslims, for Christians, but also for the Hindus.
Right.
And you see that Hinduism itself is not unilateral, it is not monolithic rather, because when if you remember at the time of communal award in 1933, in 1933 British government gave right of separate electorate to all minorities, and it was also given to lower caste Hindus. Then Gandhi, he got Maran birth, the hunger strike till death, and he compelled them to revert their right of separate electorate, because if lower caste Hindus would be minus from Hinduism, then Hindu majority is just a utopia that is
Right.
not existent.
Okay,
So,
ma'am, we're going to stop for a short break, then we'll be right back. Please stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Welcome back to our program. We were discussing the protests that were flaring up in India today and over the weekend, and it's an unfortunate state of affairs that we're seeing, and unfortunately due to the situation there with Prime Minister Modi's government, these issues were likely to flare up eventually. So now we're going to go on to the Prime Minister Imran Khan's visit to Saudi Arabia over the weekend, and now we are also seeing that he's in Bahrain attending the National Day ceremonies as a guest of honor. So I have with us in our studio Dr. Amna Mahmood. We're going to be talking about this. Thank you again for being with us. And what I wanted to say now was that Prime Minister Imran Khan went to Saudi Arabia to sort of ease the concerns of the Saudi leadership that he's going to be attending the Kuala Lumpur summit later on this month. And it seems that he's been successful in doing that, in making them understand that Pakistan's not going to be in any kind of block that goes against Saudi interests.
actually, the problem was just about the misunderstanding of the issue. What we call it Kuala Lumpur summit, that is not even a bloc working in a particular direction. That maybe its agenda is not yet known, its dimension, its organization, what it would be. It likely to be a Muslim organization working across the continent, or maybe especially in Asia, across the Asia you can say. But since Iran was on board, Turkey was on board, so Saudi Arabia was a little apprehensive that it is going to be some block against OIC, and OIC would be set aside in some way. And Prime Minister was there to clarify this situation. That is nothing like that.
And Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has also said that Prime Minister Mahathir has sent his foreign minister to formally invite Saudi Arabia to the summit.
Exactly.
As well.
And you see that I think that as you question that Saudi leadership, they are, I think that apparently they are convinced because he was seen off by MBS personally.
Yeah.
It means that there was some confidence building discussions, and that left good impression on Saudi government.
Absolutely. And ma'am, now Prime Minister Mahathir has said that the Kuala Lumpur summit offers an alternative to the
Yeah.
OIC, which many people feel has not done enough. You know, they feel that it's failed to properly represent Muslim interests, you know, around the world, especially in the situation that we see right now with Muslims. There's terrorism, there's Islamophobia,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
countries are facing a lot of development issues and governance issues.
I think that there may be, there cannot be any alternative to OIC, because OIC is a broader organization that is multi-regional, across the board, having all Muslim countries on board, and they are having a large membership of 57 countries,
Right.
and that is
A lot
the
of the Gulf
largest.
states,
That
right.
is the largest after UN. But the problem with OIC, that OIC is not very effective, and OIC is losing its place when they call, they react to some of the calamity, some of the problem, or some of the challenges faced by Muslim Ummah very late. So, and you see that these 3-4 countries like Turkey, Pakistan and Iran, they are more concerned, and obviously Malaysia, they are, and their leadership are now very much concerned about the Muslim problems and challenges as a Muslim country.
Right, okay.
So, Saudi Arabia is having inherent leadership of Muslim Ummah by having the custodianship of the Holy Lands. So, Saudi Arabia cannot be minus from any new alliance in any case. And as you just mentioned that Mahathir Mohamad Sahib sent specially foreign minister to invite Saudi Arabia, and I think that in the longer run, when this organization would have some shape in the near future, Saudi Arabia would be on board. And right now they are having this apprehension because Iran has responded very positively, but the invitation was extended to all other Muslim countries.
Absolutely.
But
So,
if-
and also Pakistan wants all the
Pakistan,
Muslim
yes.
countries to work
And-
together.
and-
We have online with us now Mr. Ahmed Zaki, who's a Middle East expert. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Zaki, online.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you please tell us a little bit about Prime Minister Imran Khan's visit to Saudi Arabia? This is his 4th visit since May, and prior to that you had the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, visiting there, and we've also seen the Army Chief went and also visited the UAE. So can you tell us about the success of this visit to sort of calm down the fears of the Saudi prince about the Kuala Lumpur summit?
Thank you so much for having me. The Prime Minister's visit in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, including the Chief of Army Staff, both of them are dictating a positive signal from Pakistan that Pakistan still maintain the neutrality between the conflict of the Middle East and Muslim world. That's number one. And number two is that BTI government, which is showing the attractiveness of the diplomacy. They want to solve the issues of the Middle East in neutrality way. Now, as they discussed it in their meeting, Prime Minister Imran Khan and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, they discussed it extensively of the regional security, number one, and number two, the diplomatic relations between Pakistan and the Middle East. And number third is that the summit that is going to take in Kuala Lumpur. Even though the Saudi Arabia declined to attend that, but still they maintain to have a strong connection. And Iran also showed a positive response on that. There is also another positive news came from Doha, Qatar, which shows that Riyadh and Doha now they are going to make normalization of their conflict. So this is all together shows that Pakistan played a very positive role when it came to the Middle East diplomacy and the Muslim world.
Right, and would you say that we've reached some headway also in sort of easing tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia? Pakistan has made a lot of efforts towards that as well.
Pakistan played a very positive role since this conflict has started. The formal government of Nawaz Sharif, they played a very positive role when Saudi Arabian consulate have been attacked by Iranian protesters, and the tension have increased between the two countries. But even though they did not successfully make both countries to sit together, but always they come to rescue to reduce the tension between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Here, Prime Minister go 4 times, and all 4 times they were discussing the same point, that Iran and Saudi Arabia should have to talk directly, face to face, and reduce the tension. And we have seen a lot of times they diffuse the tension between the Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Right. Please stay with us, Mr. Zaki. Ma'am, I'd like to now ask you as well. Turkey and Saudi Arabia had also some tensions after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and Pakistan has tried to sort of bring everybody together because Pakistan's role has been to sort out the problems in the Middle East through diplomacy. So your feedback on this?
I think that Pakistan can play a very important role in diffusing all these tensions. You know, these tensions are not very acute. You see that Saudi Arabia and Iran are very important countries of Muslim Ummah. They are just adjacent to, just across the Gulf. They are sitting together, and they have not fought any direct war with each other. And what proxies we see in Middle East, they are just based on some misunderstandings and some information from outside. And there would be no organization effectively working in among Muslim Ummah countries if both countries would not be there. Same is the case with Turkey. Turkey is having very strong policy, and that is called going back to East policy. They were previously attached with the European Union, and they were looking towards that. And with the rise of President Erdogan, you see that they are again attaching themselves to the Muslim Ummah. They are part of Muslim Ummah. And since they are not formally the part of Middle East, but they are having very strong connections with that, and being having the legacy of Ottomans, they are very much attached with Iran and Saudi Arabia and the whole Middle East.
Yes.
And we cannot ignore them. So it is Pakistan has been playing this role before during Iraq-Iran war, and we have offered always mediation, and Pakistan is very much in position, having very good relations with Turkey, having most cordial relations with Saudi Arabia, and at the same time we have leverage to bring Iran on negotiation table. And I think Pakistan is fully utilizing that potential to bring and overcome and bridge all the differences between these two powers, and that is very important for the strength of Muslim Ummah, OIC, and any other organization which is working here in this region.
Right. So, Mr. Ahmed Zaki, I'd like to ask you this now. We've been facing, the Muslim community all over the world has been facing a lot of issues with Islamophobia and other issues all the time, being linked with terrorism, falsely many times, and religious radicalism, which exists in all religions. It's mostly Muslims who are labeled with fanaticism and radicalism and terrorism, etc. So this is a big issue that all the Muslim countries together need to face. So now this upcoming Kuala Lumpur summit from December 8th to the 21st, what would you expect as a result out of this?
As they already declared on September meeting, this summit, which will going to take place in Kuala Lumpur, is that they want to have media, international media, which focuses on the Muslim issues, Muslim world issues, which responds the radicalization of Muslims in Muslim youth generations. Here we have two major different issues between East and West. West, they use for their own freedom principle in their law to marginalize the minority Muslims in West. And when they marginalize on the basis of freedom of speech, the reaction comes with the anger in Muslims in West. They take it as a radicalization, and this radicalization comes back to the Muslim world. And here we have a lot of examples. Like, for example, when they make caricature of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Western Wall, a lot of protests take place in the Eastern Wall. And they are showing in their media that these people are aggressive, they are killing their own people, they are destroying their own cities. Whenever we talk about and express about our freedom of speech, this is people who hate the freedom of speech. Muslim world, they want to issue into the rest of the world in their viewpoint that this is not only for freedom of speech, but it also crosses the line of the respect of the different religious aspects. So here, when we come back to the Muslim world, we have three major countries which are participating in the Middle East: Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, and they are equivalent with the European Union. Like, if we are going to make any sort of organization, we should have to start with economic cooperation, like just European Union one. See, Germany, France, and UK, they have totally different political aspects, but they are cooperating in terms of economic positions. When we come back to the Middle East, they don't have a direct link between these three countries, even though they are economically viable for the Muslim world, but they don't have a free market between them. Unless we created a satisfaction economic position, that interdependence between the Muslim world, it will be just only a political or a religious talk when we come to the in sharing opinion. Unless we are going to share economic positions, we cannot share anything else.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us online, Mr. Ahmed Zaki. Ma'am, your feedback, your comments on this Kuala Lumpur summit, what can we expect out of that?
I think that that is basically for is the continuation of what Mahathir Mohamad and what President Erdogan spoke in UN General Assembly, and that is in the continuation that Muslim Ummah should cooperate with each other economically, and they should design some strategy to make their house in order. And I agree with Ahmed, but he was saying that if European Union can overcome their long-standing rivalries, language differences, even religious differences, still France is a Catholic country and UK was a Protestant, and they have joined together, they have overcome their all differences and major difference of language. Yeah. They came out of that and they joined hand together to make a greater Europe. In Middle East, we are having less differences, much less than what European were having earlier.
At war, exactly.
They remained at war, 30 years war, 60-year war, 90 years war, centuries old history of war they have overcome just to have a greater Europe. Why can't we have a greater Middle East? Why can't we have a greater Muslim Ummah? And Muslim Ummah is divided into factions. Saudi Arab is having all potentials, and they are given this divine privilege to be the leader of Muslim Ummah by being custodian of holy lands. Whatever differences Muslim Ummah countries were having with Saudi Arabia, they cannot stop them to go for pilgrim. They have to go to Makkah and Medina. So, but to have that leadership role, Saudi Arab has to extend its arms. They have to go extra mileage. They have to take the ownership of most challenges being confronted by Muslim
and be kind of more vociferous about
exactly. And if they are being offered, they should come and they should step forward to join hand with other brethren countries.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Amna Mahmood, for joining us on our program. And now we will remember this day, December 16th, for our entire lifetimes, because on this day in 2014, December 16th, Pakistan suffered probably its biggest tragedy in its history when the APS massacre took place at the Army Public School in Peshawar. 134 children lost their lives, and teachers and the principal also lost their lives during a terrorist attack. So let's have a look about this day.
Only mothers have the idea how they manage to force their children out of bed and get them ready for school in chilly December mornings. The sole inspiration for a child is to ask her mother how many days are left for winter vacations. But even mothers were unaware on that fateful morning that the script has been changed altogether and there will be no repeat of the exercise ever. The horror that struck Army Public School on December 16 left the entire nation shocked. It jolted the entire world. Terrorism was identified as the common enemy to the entire humanity. Pakistan had already sacrificed tens of thousands of lives in war against terrorism that lasted for almost 2 decades. We did not lose our children on that horrifying day, but we lost our future and our dreams. Who could have even dreamt to face the death in this most brutal form? But the will of the Almighty had to be admitted. The incident resulted in unprecedented unity of entire nation for a cause. Death of the innocent children forced every single being to reiterate resolve to curb terrorism in all its manifestations.
जहाँ पे जख्म देखे थे वहाँ बबूल गिनते हैं जहाँ टूटे हुए दिल थे वहाँ सब मिल के रहते हैं
Only time will heal those wounds inflicted by the coward enemy. We salute the brave kids for their priceless sacrifice. We salute the mothers to face the horrors with grace.
Which none of us will ever forget. All those children and the teachers and students and the principal will always remain in our hearts, and hopefully this will never happen again in our country. And we also give credit to the armed forces for bringing this terrorism menace under control. Thank you for joining us on our program today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.